Ji and Jungkook never believed in fairy tales, but even he didn't expect his wedding to feel like a funeral. Married off to the powerful, cold-hearted CEO Kim Taehyung in a quiet, arranged ceremony, Jungkook finds himself living in a mansion that feels more like a prison. Taehyung, unreadable and emotionally distant, treats him like a stranger, never sparing him a second glance, never speaking unless necessary, and never touching him. To Taehyung, the marriage is nothing more than a strategic alliance. But to Jungkook, it's slowly breaking him apart. For months, he endures the silence, until one day, he can't anymore. Just when Jungkook decides to walk away, Taehyung finally snaps. A slammed door. A desperate plea. A look in Taehyung's eyes that Jungkook has never seen before, raw, pleading, afraid. And from that moment, everything begins to shift. What once felt cold starts to burn slowly. Longing stares across the dinner table. Fleeting touches that linger. An unfamiliar ache in both of their hearts. But love isn't easy, not when trust has already been broken. Can Jungkook believe the man who once made him feel invisible? And can Taehyung finally learn how to love before it's too late? The wedding had been quiet. No grand ballroom. No guests. No vows spoken out of love. Just paper signed with ink cold as ice, and two souls who didn't know each other beyond what the world told them they should be. Jungkook had stood in a tailored white suit, hands trembling as he stared at the man who would now be his husband. Kim Taehyung. He was everything Jungkook had heard. Impossibly handsome. Impossibly cold. Billionaire heir of the Kim Empire. Sharp-eyed, sharp-tongued, and utterly unreadable. And he hadn't even looked at Jungkook once that day. Not when Jungkook walked into the ceremonial room. Not when he said I do, not when he was handed the ring that would now bind them together. Now, 3 months later, they lived under the same roof but worlds apart. Taehyung came home late and left early. He spent his nights in his study or in the guest wing. He never ate meals with Jungkook. He never asked how his day was. He never spoke to him unless it was about formal appearances they had to attend together. Jungkook tried. God, he tried. He would wait at the dining table. He would knock gently on Taehyung's door just to say good night. He would bring him coffee in the mornings, only to find the cup untouched hours later. The silence became deafening. And love? There was no space for it in this house. It was raining the night Jungkook decided he was done. He sat by the window, watching droplets slide down the glass like they were falling for him. He clutched the suitcase on his lap, hands pale from holding the handle too tightly. He had packed quietly. He didn't own much that wasn't already picked out by Taehyung's assistants. But the pain in his chest? That was his. Every aching beat of it. When he opened the front door, he didn't expect anyone to be there. But Taehyung was. Soaked from the rain, suit clinging to his frame, eyes locked on Jungkook with something unreadable swirling behind them. Where are you going? Taehyung asked. His voice was low, nearly drowned out by the storm. Jungkook gripped the handle tighter. It doesn't matter. You won't notice I'm gone. Taehyung didn't reply right away. His jaw clenched. For once, he looked staggered. You can't just leave. Why not? Jungkook asked, his voice cracking. You don't see me. You don't speak to me. I'm nothing more than a contract to you. So why does it matter if I go? Taehyung took a step forward. Because it matters to me, and just like that, the mask cracked. For the first time, Taehyung looked scared. Vulnerable. Human. And Jungkook didn't know what to do with that. Jungkook didn't leave that night. He sat by the fireplace, soaked clothes exchanged for dry ones, a heavy silence settling between them. Taehyung hadn't said another word, just poured 2 glasses of whiskey and sat across from him. "Why now?" Jungkook asked finally. "Why stop me tonight?" Taehyung looked into the flames. "Because I was afraid you'd never come back, and you care." Silence. Then, yes, one word. So fragile, so full of things left unsaid. Jungkook swallowed the lump in his throat. "Then show me. I can't keep being invisible in this marriage. I need to know I matter." Taehyung's eyes met his. For once, there was no distance in them. "You do. I just didn't know how to show it." The next morning felt different. Jungkook woke to the soft smell of something warm. He walked into the dining room and stopped short. There, on the table, was breakfast. Freshly made. Still steaming. And Taehyung, in casual clothes, standing awkwardly by the chair across from his. "I didn't know what you liked," Taehyung said, not meeting his eyes. "So I asked the chef to prepare a few things." Jungkook blinked, surprised. "You didn't have to. I wanted to." They ate mostly in silence, but this time it wasn't cold. It was careful. Measured. Jungkook caught Taehyung watching him a few times, only for the older man to quickly look away. Later that afternoon, Jungkook stepped out of the shower to find a new set of paints and brushes laid neatly on his bed. The kind he used to love before he got married. There was a note. "I remember you said painting calms you. Maybe it can help now." Jungkook sat on the edge of the bed, fingers tracing the bristles of the brush, heart thudding. It wasn't grand. It wasn't perfect. But it was a start. And for the first time in months, Jungkook smiled. Jungkook decided to go out that weekend. He needed air, needed something outside of walls too large and memories too quiet. He met with Jimin, his closest friend, at a small coffee shop tucked into a quiet corner of the city. They laughed. They talked. Jimin teased him about his marriage, nudged his shoulder when Jungkook tried to defend Taehyung. "He finally made you breakfast." "Wow. Alert the press," Jimin said dramatically. Jungkook laughed, but it was softer than usual. It meant something. What he didn't notice was the sleek black car parked across the street. Taehyung sat in the back seat, sunglasses on, jaw tight as he watched Jungkook smile, laugh, glow in a way he never had at home. When Jungkook came home, he found Taehyung pacing the living room. "You were gone all day. I told you I was meeting Jimin. You didn't say you'd be gone until sunset." Jungkook narrowed his eyes. "Were you waiting for me?" Taehyung looked like he wanted to deny it. But he said nothing. "You were, weren't you?" "I didn't like seeing you laugh like that." "Like what?" "Like I wasn't the one who should be making you laugh." Jungkook's breath caught. There it was again, the mask, cracking. And this time, Jungkook stepped closer. "Then maybe you should try." The days following their emotional confrontation at the car were different. The air between them was no longer cold, but charged with something else, tension that crackled and buzzed, even in silence. Taehyung was no longer as distant. Jungkook noticed it in the way the man would linger a little longer at the breakfast table, the way his gaze would flicker toward him when he thought Jungkook wasn't looking. There was a softness beginning to form at the edges of Taehyung's otherwise stoic expression, like a winter slowly thawing. One night, they ended up walking the garden after dinner. Taehyung said nothing at first, his hands in his pockets, eyes scanning the moonlit flowers. But he stayed close. I used to come here as a kid, he murmured eventually, voice low. My mother loved roses. Jungkook turned to him. You never talk about her. Taehyung gave a short, humorless laugh. I don't talk about a lot of things. Doesn't mean I don't feel them. They stood in silence for a moment longer. Then, without warning, Taehyung reached out and adjusted the collar of Jungkook's cardigan, just a small, barely there touch, but Jungkook's breath caught. It meant something. The next day, Taehyung came home early. Jungkook, surprised, was curled up in the living room with a book. Taehyung stood at the doorframe for a moment before stepping in. Have dinner with me, he said. Not as obligations. Just us. No stuff. No formalities, Jungkook blinked. Okay, the dinner was awkward at first. But slowly, over clinks of silverware and hesitant smiles, the conversation began to flow. They talked about little things, music, books, things they liked. Jungkook found himself laughing softly at something Taehyung said, and Taehyung looked mesmerized by the sound. After dinner, they didn't separate as usual. They sat together in the living room, music low in the background. You make this house feel less like a tomb, Taehyung said quietly, not meeting his eyes. Jungkook's heart beat a little faster. I just wanted to be seen, Taehyung whispered. You always were. I just didn't know how to look without breaking. The space between them shrank by inches, their shoulders almost touching. Neither moved away. And in that moment, a new understanding flickered to life. It wasn't love yet, not quite. But it was real. A promise in the burn soft glances shared in the quiet. It shifted into something gentler. Taehyung poured the wine himself. He asked Jungkook what he was reading. He even laughed, really laughed, when Jungkook told him about the time he accidentally spilled paint on one of his professors and tried to blame it on a ghost. Jungkook couldn't stop staring. He hadn't seen this side of Taehyung before. Relaxed. Unarmored. And Taehyung, he kept looking too. Like he was realizing just how much he had missed by not looking sooner. At the end of dinner, neither of them moved. The dishes had long since gone cold, but their eyes stayed locked. Jungkook whispered, Why are you really doing this? Taehyung didn't hesitate. Because I'm afraid, he said quietly, that I've already ruined something I didn't realize I needed until it was slipping through my fingers. The words settled like a fragile truth between them. And Jungkook, instead of replying, reached across the table and placed his hand over Taehyung's. It was small. Simple. But it felt like the first break in the bridge between them. Rain again. It always seemed to rain when something changed between them. They were standing under the awning of the garden pavilion after an evening stroll, one Taehyung had suggested this time. The storm had come fast, the sky breaking open like a wound, wind pushing them closer together under the narrow roof. Taehyung's shoulder brushed against Jungkook's. Neither moved away. Do you still think about leaving? Taehyung asked softly, watching the rain. Jungkook was quiet for a beat. Sometimes. When it feels like I'm still not enough, Taehyung turned to him, fully this time. His eyes searched Jungkook's face. You were never the problem, Jungkook. Then what is me? Taehyung's voice was hoarse. I built so many walls I forgot how to let anyone in. But you make me want to try. Jungkook's heart thudded painfully. Then try, he whispered. Try, Taehyung. Taehyung leaned in slowly, hesitantly, like he was giving Jungkook time to pull away. But he didn't. Their lips brushed, just barely. And then a servant called out from the house, breaking the moment. They stepped apart, breathless. Neither said a word, but the look they shared said everything. Next time, they both thought. Next time, they wouldn't stop.